Good morning to respected all dignitaries, my seniors, my fellow colleagues. I am Dr. Bharat Bhushan Patidar, General Surgery 3rd year resident, presenting a case of young male with long-standing recurrent pain in abdomen under the guidance of Dr. Neel Kamal Gupta sir, Professor and Unit Head, Department of General Surgery. A 17-year-old male patient, a student resident of Fatehpur Sikri district, Uttar Pradesh, belonging to low socio-economic status, presented with recurrent pain in upper abdomen for 2 years. Patient had pain for 2 years located in upper abdomen, incidence in onset, on and off in nature, with increase in intensity and frequency for last 5 to 6 months. Initially, there were 1 to 2 episodes per month, which lasted for 1 to 2 hours, followed by 4 to 5 episodes per month, which lasted for 2 to 3 hours. His daily activities were getting hampered due to pain episodes. Pain was boring in nature of variable intensity, and it is radiating to bed, and it is aggravated by taking fatty food, and was relieved on bending forward and taking medications. Initially, he used to take oral analgesics, but for last 5 to 6 months, pain was so severe in intensity, and it was relieved by parenteral analgesics. Sometimes the pain was so severe that it was associated with nausea and vomiting. Vomiting was non-projectile in nature and contained partially digested food. Pain was aggravated by eating, which led to fear of eating, with undocumented weight loss. Initially, he used to eat 4 to 5 chapatis per meal, with was decreased to 2 to 3 chapatis per meal. He was treated conservatively as inpatient multiple times prior in different hospitals, which affected his studies and daily activities. There was no history of retrosternal heartburn, fever, jaundice, polyuria, polyphagia, polydipsia, foul smelling, greasy stools and diarrhea. No history of bloating, constipation, abdominal lump, hematemesis or melanoma. No history of hematuria or dark colored urine or past trauma. There was no significant past surgical history, no history of diabetes, asthma, hypertension, tuberculosis and any COVID-19 infection. Patient is vegetarian by diet with no addictions and normal bowel and bladder habits. Patient had history of taking analgesics at the time of pain, like tablet diclofenac, tramadol, pantoprazole, ranitidine, sucralfate. There was no drug allergy reported and no significant family history. To summarize, a 17-year-old male with complaint of recurrent pain in upper abdomen for 2 years. Pain was varying in nature and on and off with increasing intensity and frequency from last 5 to 6 months, which is radiating to death, and it is associated with nausea and vomiting and adversely affecting his daily life. Pain was relieved on bending forward and taking medications. So, I would like to the audience, what could be the possibilities? More likely, peptic ulcer disease, gastritis, pancreatitis, biliary colic. Less likely, functional dyspepsia, irritable bowel syndrome, chronic mesenteric ischemia, metabolic causes. On general physical examination, patient was examined in well-lit room with proper verbal consent. Patient was conscious, well-oriented to time, place and person. On vital parameter at presentation were normal. Patient was averagely built and averagely nourished with BMI 21. Pallor, icterus, clubbing, cyanosis, lymphadenopathy and edema was absent. On local examination, patient was inspected in supine position with leg flexed, arms on the side and exposed from nipple above to mid-thigh below. Abdomen was flat with central inverted umbilicus. All the quadrants move equally on respiration. Normal abdominothoracic respiratory movements, no scar marks, dilated veins, pulsations, visible peristalsis were seen. No swelling was seen over the abdomen. All luminal orifices were normal. External genitalias were normal. On palpation, there was no local rise in temperature. Abdomen was soft, tenderness present in epigastrium and umbilical region. Guarding and rigidity was absent. Liver, spleen, kidney were not palpable. All hernial orifices were normal, and there was no abnormality reported in per-rectal examination. On percussion, tympanic knot all over the abdomen. Fluid seal was absent. On auscultation, bruit, succussion space was absent. Normal bowel sounds present. This systemic examination was normal. So abdomen is like a Pandora box. There can be various differentials. What do you think now? So we have divided our differentials based on the 9 regions of the abdomen. There are 4 imaginary lines we made. Upper 2 horizontal lines. Upper horizontal line is made from the tip of 9th costal cartilage, and lower horizontal line at the transtubercular line, which is 2 inches behind the anterior superior iliac spine. Yes, sir.
How do you divide the vertical line?
Vertical line is from mid-clavicular point to mid-inguinal point.
What you were telling before?
Upper horizontal line and lower horizontal line. Tip of 9 costal cartilage. Request, sir.
Why don't you say subcostal?
It's subcostal.
ठीक है, it may be 9th, it may be 10th also.
Yes, sir.
ठीक है, और lower वाली?
Sir, transtubercular at the 2 inches behind the anterior superior iliac spine or highest point of the iliac crest.
और जो मिड लाइन जा रही है, जो वर्टिकल लाइन जा रही है, वो कहाँ से कहाँ तक जाएगी?
Sir, mid-clavicular point to mid-inguinal point.
What is mid-inguinal point?
Mid-inguinal point is and anterior superior line made from anterior superior spine to pubic symphysis.
What is the midpoint of inguinal ligament?
Anterior superior iliac spine to pubic tubercle.
So in this division, what do you do? You take mid-inguinal point or midpoint of inguinal ligament?
Mid-inguinal point.
Tell me the regions.
Right hypochondrium.
Why do you call it as right hypochondrium?
Because it is below the hypochondrium, right side. Second is epigastrium. Third is left hypochondrium. Fourth is right lumbar umbilicus and umbilical region, left lumbar, right iliac fossa, hypogastrium and left iliac fossa.
ठीक है.
Based on the history, examination and the site of pain, we have reached to the probable diagnosis of peptic ulcer, pancreatitis and functional dyspepsia, gastritis and biliary pathology. Now we further proceed to blood investigations. All investigations were normal within normal range except serum lipase, which was raised. Upper GI endoscopy was normal. So we further advise radiological investigation. So I would like to invite Dr. Pradya Soni from Radiology Department to discuss radiological findings.
Good morning, respected teachers and my dear colleagues. I will be discussing the radiological findings in this case. This is the X-ray chest PA view of the patient. I would like to ask the audience if they can see any abnormality in this X-ray. Alright, the chest X-ray appears grossly normal. However, there are multiple radio opacities seen transversely arranged and crossing the midline at L1 to 2 vertebral levels, more towards the left side, which is suggestive of pancreatic calcifications, as normal location of pancreas is at this level in the midline and obliquely placed with its tail higher than the head. The ultrasonographic findings in this patient were liver, normal in size, shape and ecotexture. The intrahepatic biliary radicals were not dilated. The gallbladder was partially distended. The CBD was normal in caliber and smoothly tapering. The pancreas had atrophic and heterogeneous parenchyma. The main pancreatic duct was tortuous and dilated with multiple calculi within it. Peripancreatic fat stranding with a small inflammatory collection was seen at the tail region. These are the CT findings of the patient. Here we have kept a normal CT for visual appearance of the patient. In our patient, the pancreas were atrophic with multiple parenchymal calcification and multiple cysts in the parenchyma of the pancreas. The MPD was dilated with multiple calculi, 15 to 20 in number, largest measuring 3 cm. The MPD was approximately 12 mm in diameter. There was peripancreatic fat stranding and a collection in the tail region of the pancreas. Here's a small video which shows that the pancreas is atrophic with dilated and tortuous MPD and multiple calculi within the MPD. On the basis of these findings, the radiological diagnosis was chronic calcific pancreatitis with acute inflammatory changes. Thank you. I would like to call Dr. Bharat to carry forward the case. Yes, sir. These could be. But most of the time the lymph nodes are present along the aorta, and they are present in the longitudinal section, not in the transverse section at the level of the L1 and L2 vertebrae particularly.
Thank you, Dr. Padya. So, based on history, blood and radiological investigation, we conclude our diagnosis to chronic calcific pancreatitis. To rule out the cause, we did Tegaro categorization in consideration. In this, T stands for toxic metabolite, which includes alcohol, tobacco, hypercalcemia, hyperlipidemia, and dietary nutritional cause, chronic renal failure. I stands for idiopathic. G stands for genetic cause, involving PRS1 gene mutation, PRS2 gene mutation, SPINK1 gene mutation, CFTR gene mutation, chymotrypsin C gene. A stands for autoimmune cause, R stands for recurrent and severe acute pancreatitis, and lastly O stands for obstructive and mechanical causes, which include pancreatitism, sphincter of aorta dysfunction, malignant obstruction of pancreatic duct, annular pancreas, choledocalcine. Now, based on all our investigations and Tegaro classification, we conclude our final diagnosis in idiopathic chronic calcific pancreatitis without associated exocrine endocrine insufficiency. Now, patient was referred to gastroenterology department for further management. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Bikram Rana from gastroenterology department for further discussion.
Good morning, respected teachers. 17-year-old male diagnosed with chronic calcific pancreatitis was referred to us for further management. The management of chronic pancreatitis can be divided into medical management, endoscopic management, and surgical management. The majority of patients with chronic pancreatitis have pain as the most common presenting complaint and require some form of analgesia. Some of the common medications used are acetaminophen, tramadol, NSAIDs, tricyclic antidepressants, SSRI, gabapentoids, and pancreatic enzyme replacement therapy. As the patient was already taking pain medications and still there was no relief, thus medical management was ruled out and he was considered for endoscopic or surgical management. In endoscopic therapy, the therapeutic options are pancreatic duct stone removal, pancreatic duct drainage by sphincterotomy and stenting, stricture dilatation, relief of pancreatic pain by US guided celiac plexus block, and the aim of endoscopy is for pain relief and ductal decompression. Small calculi within the main pancreatic duct can be extracted endoscopically. Larger or impacted stones in case of main pancreatic duct stenosis, endoscopic removal is usually impossible, and in these patients, extracorporeal shock wave lithotripsy followed by endotherapy is needed. The second image on your right side is an ERCP image showing dilated pancreatic duct with alternating strictures and dilatation. This is chain of lake appearance, which is diagnostic of chronic pancreatitis. This is a flow chart for symptomatic pancreatic calculi. If there is a small calculi, we can go ahead with ERCP and extraction with balloon or basket. But if there is large calculi, which is located in head and body with single or no stricture, we go for extracorporeal shock wave lithotripsy followed by ERCP. But if the endotherapy fails, or if there are extensive calculi with multiple strictures and suspicion of head mass, we go ahead with surgery. Factors favoring endotherapy are 3 or fewer stones, but in our patient there were large stone burden. Stones confined to head or body of the pancreas. In our patient, stones were scattered throughout the head, body and tail. Stone diameter less than 10 mm. In our patients, maximum stone size was 3 cm and absence of impacted stones. There were multiple impacted stones in our patient. As our patient had large stone burden with calculi scattered throughout the head, body and tail, with maximum stone size being 3 cm and presence of multiple impacted stones in the NPD, patient was deemed unsuitable for endotherapy and was referred back to the surgery department for surgical management. Now I call my colleague Bharat.
Patient was again referred back to us for surgical intervention. Our goal of surgery is to provide pain relief, maintain both endocrine and exocrine function, and enhance the individual overall quality of life. There are different surgical approaches for treatment of chronic pancreatitis, which includes resection procedures include pancreaticoduodenectomy, pylorus preserving pancreaticoduodenectomy, Beger's procedure, near total or total pancreatectomy. Decompressive procedures are dual procedures, Puzzo procedures, modified Puzzo, also known as Partington-Rochelle procedure, SBG procedures, and hybrid mix of resection and decompressive procedures are include Fraisse procedure, Hamburg's modification, Bund's modification. Approach to surgery depends on presence of or absence of focal mass with duct dilatation, with or without duct dilatation. Based on absence of focal mass and presence of pancreatic duct dilatation, we proceed to our decompressive procedure, Partington-Rochelle, also known as modified Puzzo, which is purely decompressive procedure. Why we choose modified Puzzo procedure? In our patient, duct dilatation was 12 mm with no inflammatory focal mass, so we proceeded with modified Puzzo procedure, which is a pure decompressive procedure. As surgical steps, we made chevron rooftop incision given and abdomen open in layers. Gastrocolic omentum was divided to gain entry into the lesser sac and assess the anterior surface of pancreas. By aspirating this needle, we will identify the main duct. Pancreatic duct was laid open. This is a small video showing pancreatic duct. Multiple calculi removed from main pancreatic duct. This is a short video removal of calculi from main pancreatic duct. While longitudinal pancreaticojejunostomy was done, abdomen closed in layers. Post-operative period was uneventful. Patient was mobilized on post-operative evening. Patient was allowed orally on post-operative day 1 and soft diet allowed on post-operative day 2 and was discharged in post-operative day 4 in stable condition. On first follow-up at 12th day, suture were removed. On follow-up day 30, patient was doing well. On recent follow-up, general condition of patient has improved. Quality of life enhanced with increase in appetite, allowing him to continue his studies without taking any leave, with no requirement of pain medications till now. Now moving to review of literature. The article showing management of pancreatic calculi in tabulated form, published in Curious Journal of Medical Sciences, indexed in PubMed Central. If size of calculi is small, we will go for medical management, ERCP or extraction balloon or basket. If the size of calculi is large, located in head and body, associated with single or no stricture, we can go for ESWL calculi. We will go for surgical management if there are extensive calculi associated with multiple stricture and complicated head mass. In case of failed endotherapy, we will go for surgical management. One of the articles predicting successful extracorporeal shock wave lithotripsy and endoscopic clearance in patients with chronic pancreatitis depending on duct diameter and size of stones, published in Journal of Neuroendocrine Tumors and Pancreatic Diseases and Sciences, indexed in PubMed Central. In this article, they have concluded that pre-shock wave lithotripsy endotherapy does not affect stone segmentation. Patients with dilated duct more than 8 mm and pancreatic stones 12 mm or greater were associated with unsuccessful technical success and endoscopic success respectively, and may benefit from early referral for surgical decompression. Literature search did not reveal any paper showing removal of stone size greater than equal to 3 cm. Up to our knowledge, this size of pancreatic stone of 3 cm is first in our Mahatma Gandhi Hospital. Take home message: chronic pancreatitis present as a complex challenge requiring comprehensive management. A multidisciplinary approach involving medical, endoscopic, surgical therapy is important. Endoscopic therapy plays a significant role as primary intervention therapy. When the size and number of stones are less, surgery plays an important role when the size and number of stones are large, and in such cases can be considered as first line of management. Now I would like to invite Dr. Neel Kamal Gupta sir to carry forward.
Thank you everyone. It was a good discussion. Actually, when we were given the opportunity to present a case in the CCR, I was in dilemma that what is to be presented. कि कोई रेयर केस प्रेजेंट करें, कोई रियल डायग्नोसिस, then I selected this case because there are few peculiar things which this case is showing few rarity of our institute. The thing is कि जो पेशेंट था ये यूपी से था और बहुत ही पुअर फैमिली से था, and he was waiting for the 2 years here and there, but he could not get relief. इसके पास कोई भी हेल्थ स्कीम नहीं थी, जो गवर्नमेंट हेल्थ स्कीम होती है जैसे चिरंजीवी. तो व्हेन द पेशेंट केम एंड ही वाज डायग्नोज्ड, तो मेरे लिए बहुत डिफिकल्ट सिचुएशन थी कि पेनक्रियाटिक सर्जरी है और कैश मोड में सर्जरी होनी है. आई एम थैंकफुल टू दी मैनेजमेंट ऑफ द महात्मा गांधी हॉस्पिटल कि उन्होंने पुअर पेशेंट्स के लिए जो कैम सिस्टम स्टार्ट किया हुआ है उसमें इसकी सर्जरी पॉसिबल हो पाई. And this is one of the peculiar thing in our institute. Secondly, this case also shows one of the principal of our institute, the principal of our founder and emeritus chairperson Dr. respected Dr. N.L. Sorkar sir, कि जो भी मरीज महात्मा गांधी अस्पताल में आए वो यहाँ से खुश होकर जाना चाहिए. ये हमारी प्राथमिकता है. दिस इंस्टीट्यूट इज बेस्ड ऑन दिस प्रिंसिपल एंड वी आर एबल टू अचीव दिस प्रिंसिपल. आई एम शेयरिंग ए वीडियो ऑफ द पेशेंट एंड यू लुक एट द हैप्पीनेस ऑन द फेस ऑफ द पेशेंट, हाउ हैप्पी द पेशेंट वाज आफ्टर सर्जरी.
मैं पढ़ाई करता हूँ और उम्र 18 साल की है और मेरे पेनक्रियाज में प्रॉब्लम थी. मैं बहुत 1 साल से परेशान था और मैं बहुत जगह दवाई खाई, लखनऊ, उज्जैन, भोपाल तक जाया, कोई आराम नहीं मिला. फिर मैं केएम हॉस्पिटल में भर्ती था कई दिन तक और भी कई हॉस्पिटलों में भर्ती हुआ, बहुत टैबलेट खाई, आयुर्वेदिक दवाइयाँ भी ली, लेकिन कोई आराम नहीं मिला. फिर हमने कई डॉक्टरों से सलाह ली और फिर जानकारियाँ की. तो एक भरतपुर में डॉक्टर से बात की तो उन्होंने बताया कि जयपुर में जाइए, महात्मा गांधी हॉस्पिटल नीलकमल सर के पास ऑपरेशन करवाइएगा, बहुत आराम मिलेगा. तो यहाँ पे हम लोगों ने कई लोगों की सलाह के बाद में यहाँ पे आए और ऑपरेशन करवाया और ऑपरेशन सक्सेसफुल हुआ और आज मैं एकदम सही हूँ बिल्कुल. ऑपरेशन के बाद मुझे इतना रिलीफ है कि मैं कुछ भी खा पी सकता हूँ आराम से और मुझे कोई दिक्कत नहीं है. और पहले चाय भी पीता था तो वो पलटी हो जाती थी, कुछ खा नहीं पाता था, हर टाइम दर्द रहता था मुझे और सो नहीं पाता था कभी. और अब ऐसा है कि ऑपरेशन के बाद में अच्छे से खा रहा हूँ, सो रहा हूँ, चल फिर रहा हूँ अच्छे से और बहुत आराम है मुझे. तो आप भी आएँ और यहाँ पे
Anyway, my request to all the audience and all the faculty residents not to tali or not to upload for in the CCRM. Please avoid this.
Sir, one thing I also want to share related to this presentation कि जब हमने प्रेजेंटेशन कंप्लीट कर ली थी सर, तो 3 से 4 दिन पहले दी प्रेजेंटर डॉक्टर भरत पाटदा who is the JR3, he suffered from the acute exacerbation of the rheumatic disease. He has many comorbidities and मैंने इससे कहा कि कोई बात नहीं, अपन कोई और दूसरा प्रेजेंट कर लेगा. तो इसने कहा नहीं सर मैं ही प्रेजेंट करूंगा चाहे कुछ भी हो जाए. एंड दिस इज द डेडिकेशन ऑफ आवर PV स्टूडेंट्स ऑफ आवर इंस्टीट्यूट कि इतना होने के बाद भी अभी ये 5 मिनट खड़ा नहीं हो सकता था, लेकिन 1 घंटे तक यहाँ पे खड़ा रहा सर.